Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, let's dive into this. Today we're breaking down the true cost of control, specifically when it comes to foreign exchange policies. We're going to trace the line from those high-level macroeconomic levers, things like currency liquidity and mandatory conversions, straight to your front door.
So I want you to think about this. How does a banking rule actually change what's on your dinner plate? It's kind of a jarring thought, isn't it? We usually think of financial regulations as being locked away in corporate boardrooms. But today, we're connecting the dots to see exactly how abstract economic policy dictates our everyday lived reality.
To really understand the mechanics here, we have to start with this idea. Foreign currency is the lifeblood of a small island economy. And that makes perfect sense. By definition, a small island nation has limited internal resources. You absolutely need internationally accepted foreign currency for the bare essentials: food, medicine, fuel. If you restrict access to that currency, well, the entire system begins to choke.
Section 1. The Catalyst. The Business Squeeze.
We start to see this initial economic friction in policies like a mandatory 40% conversion. Imagine you're a business and you are forced to convert a fixed 40% of your foreign currency income into local currency. Boom, you are instantly stripped of the vital liquidity you need. Suddenly, companies just don't have the cash on hand to pay their overseas suppliers or settle international contracts. So what happens when businesses are starved of foreign currency? Well, we get a tale of two markets. On one side, you have the official exchange rate. Looks great on paper, but because the banks literally can't supply enough currency, businesses are forced underground to the parallel market. It's secretive, it's highly distorted, and it is vastly more expensive. And simply slapping fines on money changers doesn't eliminate the demand. It just creates a really costly gap between official policy and reality. Let's move to Section 2 and see how this builds the bottleneck: import inflation. We've seen those hidden shadow markets, so now let's trace how that pressure physically chokes the supply chain through something called import inflation. Now, this is defined as the rising cost of imported essentials caused by restricted foreign currency access, delayed shipments, and shrinking order sizes. This right here is the exact mechanism that makes everyday goods suddenly unaffordable. Let's just walk through this invisible pipeline step by step. Step 1. Currency liquidity drops because of those forced conversions. Step 2, desperate importers have no choice but to turn to that expensive shadow market. Step 3, because buying currency costs so much more, purchasing power plummets. Order sizes shrink and shipments get delayed. Which brings us to Step 4. Businesses pass that massive new expense straight on to the consumer. So a penalty on a street corner money changer literally transforms into a higher price tag at your local grocery register. Pacing down a bit here for Section 3, the human toll, from boardrooms to living rooms. We're shifting now from corporate spreadsheets to visceral, everyday reality. It boils down to a brutal math problem for households. Prices rise much faster than salaries, shrinking disposable income. Because when businesses pass those shadow market costs down, wages don't magically rise to match them. Families lose purchasing power. And that leads to some downright impossible choices. Our source details exactly what those impossible choices look like, and it's tough. We're talking about parents cutting back on their own meals, children losing access to nutritious food, essential medical treatments getting delayed because imported medicine is suddenly totally out of reach. And as basic costs like rent and transport skyrocket, families are forced to borrow from friends or informal lenders just to keep the lights on. Add in delayed salaries and layoffs, and these aren't just data points anymore. They represent a daily erosion of human dignity. It's the kind of choices no family should ever have to make. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it shows that financial stress absolutely refuses to stay contained. It starts out as economic pressure, where businesses struggle with costs. But when disposable income collapses, that escalates into social pressure. Families lose their stability, and trust in institutions just erodes. And finally, this ripples outward into full-scale national pressure, marked by widespread anxiety and hardship. Import inflation isn't just an economic problem, it is a profound human problem. Which brings us to Section 4, the resolution, a path to reform. So how do we actually fix it? Well, the author proposes a pivot away from these suffocating permanent restrictions. As we've seen, current restrictive controls actively push foreign currency offshore and force businesses into those expensive informal channels. The proposed solution? Targeted and temporary reforms that encourage currency inflow and strengthen the official banking sector. The goal here is balancing the scales, stabilizing the currency without completely destroying the purchasing power of the people. So the crucial point to take away from all this is that economic systems really must serve the people, not the other way around. Reforms need to protect households. Basic needs shouldn't become luxuries. As the text emphatically states, an economy is only strong when its people are strong. If citizens literally cannot afford food and medicine, well, those high-level macroeconomic indicators simply don't matter. We'll end today's explainer on this powerful thought from the source. A nation's true wealth is not measured in reserves or exchange rates, but in the well-being of its citizens. It really forces us to reevaluate the moral responsibility behind economic policy. Because if a policy strengthens a currency on paper, but severely weakens the actual people relying on it, who is it really serving? Thank you for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning the systems around you, and I'll catch you next time.